Ladies and gentlemen, this is becoming a headache to Nigerians, and in fact, it's almost affecting nearby countries. And so we must all watch out for each other. And for this reason, I did this video so that anybody who sees this video can share it to fellow Nigerians until it reaches some leaders and some authorities in Nigeria. Now hear me out. My wonderful people of Nigeria, for too long, you have been told that banditry is merely a security problem. Yes, it is a security problem, but more importantly, it is a problem of state authority. A nation does not collapse because criminals become stronger. No, not at all. A nation collapses because the state becomes weaker than the criminals. And that is exactly where Nigeria stands today. Before we talk about solutions, let us first understand the enemy, because you cannot defeat what you do not understand. Most of these groups did not begin as terrorists. Many started as cattle rustlers, armed robbers, illegal miners, smuggling syndicates, local militias, young men armed during communal conflict, and other forms of organized criminal activity. And here is another thing. After the collapse of Libya in 2011, military-grade weapons flooded across the Sahel. Assault rifles, machine guns, and explosives spread through porous borders into West Africa. At the same time, Boko Haram's insurgency stretched Nigeria's security forces to their limits. As pressure mounted in the northeast and later in the northwest of Nigeria, criminal networks evolved. Kidnapping became an industry, ladies and gentlemen. Cattle rustling became organized crime. Illegal mining became a major source of financing for these criminals. Small gangs gradually evolved into parallel governments. Then by 2020, ladies and gentlemen, entire communities were reportedly paying taxes to these armed groups simply because they want to survive. Now think about that. When criminals begin collecting taxes and ransom, they are no longer behaving like ordinary criminals. They are behaving like governments. And that should terrify every Nigerian. Conflict involving bandits, jihadist groups, and other armed actors have displaced millions and claimed tens of thousands of lives over the past decades. Rural communities across Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna, Niger, Sokoto, and some other neighboring states have endured repeated attacks and displacements. Now ask yourself one question. What does this tell you? In political science, this is called the state losing its monopoly over violence. In simple English, the government is gradually losing effective control over parts of its own territory. Let me present to you the blueprint of a country called El-Salvador. As these things were happening in Nigeria, I asked myself one question. Which country faced something similar and managed to reverse the trend? The answer was simply El-Salvador. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria can adopt the blueprint of El-Salvador to end its bandits issue. I encourage every Nigerian to do their own research on that country. Just a few years ago, El-Salvador was regarded as one of the most dangerous countries in the world. It recorded one of the world's highest homicide rates, and large areas were effectively controlled by violent gangs such as the MS-13 and Barrio 18. Today, after sweeping security reforms under President Nayib Bukele, El Salvador has become one of the safest countries in Latin America, with its homicide rate falling dramatically It was a strategy. Because the President Nayib Bukele changed the rules of the game. Most people think Bukele defeated gangs simply by building prisons, harsh prisons. That's not it. In fact, the prison was the final chapter in the blueprint. When I studied the blueprint, I realized the real strategy came much earlier. Bukele, the president, he understood something profound, and that was crime survives because criminals possesses 5 things. And then here are the 5 things that he mentioned: territory, communication, money, fear, and recruitment. Take note of that. And systematically, his government attacked all these 5 angles. Only then did the prison become important after all this. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight to it. If I were the president of Nigeria today, this is exactly what I would do. First, Nigeria must declare a national internal security emergency. Not a political emergency, an operational one. Every security agency reports into one unified command, because bandits don't care which agency has jurisdiction, and so neither should the government. Secondly, Nigeria has allowed vast forests to become invisible territories, and that must end immediately. Every major forest should be mapped using advanced satellite imagery. Drones should be put in the forest. Thermal imaging and persistent surveillance across all the forest and these bandits prone areas. Every illegal route must be identified. Every camp must be tracked. No square kilometer of Nigeria's forest or high risk areas should exist beyond the eyes of the state, because the government cannot govern land it cannot see. Every major forest should become controlled security zone. If you are logging, you should be registered. Listen to this. If you are mining, you should be registered, and you should be monitored 24/7. If you are hunting, you should be registered. If you are moving livestock, you should be registered and monitored. Every person entering, every truck entering and leaving, every movement recorded, because where government presence ends, criminal government begins. Thirdly, Nigeria must build forest security force. I'm not talking about ordinary policing. I'm talking about a specialized forest ranger corps, uniquely trained, specially trained. Take young Nigerians, recruit them from the local communities, highly trained, properly paid, properly equipped, because local people know every path, every stream, every hill. When communities become partners of security instead of victims, then we are talking about real security solution. You see, the fourth thing, Nigeria should destroy every major source of funding that is linked to these criminal activities. You see, this is where governments usually fail. And looking at the blueprint of El-Salvador, they did not focus on bullets. They focused on bank accounts. Every ransom network must be investigated. Suspicious financial transactions should be frozen under the law. Illegal mining operations must be dismantled. Gold supply chains must be audited. Livestock markets linked to cattle rustling must be investigated. Fuel supply networks must be disrupted. You don't bankrupt a criminal by killing him alone. That doesn't solve the issue. You bankrupt him by destroying the reason he became one in the first place. You kill the passion and the desire for even joining this thing in the first place. And again, Nigeria must cut off all communication. No criminal empire survives without communication. Within the limits of the law and with judicial oversight, security agencies should have the authority to disrupt or intercept communications in active conflict zones while protecting the rights of ordinary citizens. You see, you must remove the command and control capability that allows kidnappers to coordinate attacks, negotiate ransom, and evade capture. They shouldn't have the power to even call people to come and pay ransom before they leave those people. Build a maximum security detention facility. And that is what was the last thing in the El-Salvador blueprint. And this facility should be dedicated to high-risk organized criminals. A center of no mobile phones, no bribery, no outside command, no luxury behind bars. The prison should end criminal operations. You can copy how El Salvador has its own structure. Because a prison should end criminal operations and not become the headquarters of these criminals. And you see, Nigeria needs to launch Operation Surrender all illegal firearms. Provide a limited surrender window. After that, anyone caught with military-grade weapons used for organized violent crime should face the full weight of anti-terrorism laws through due process. The state cannot negotiate with an army it did not create. Now, here comes one of the hardest steps. Operation Clean Our Own House. And that is any politician, any traditional ruler, any businessman, any security officer, anyone proven in court to have any affiliation, to have financed, armed, or protect any bandit must face swift persecution under the law. A nation cannot defeat organized crime whilst organized crime exists inside state institutions. Then comes another phase. Replace the bandits with the government. This is the step everyone forgets. Winning a battle is not enough. People must feel that government has arrived. You need to mount military bases almost everywhere. In the roads, schools, hospitals, ports, banks, markets, and almost everywhere, because empty space never stays empty when it comes to these bandits and criminals. If government does not occupy liberated communities, bandits eventually will do that. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, let me say something that may sound controversial. Nigeria does not have a shortage of brave soldiers. Nigeria does not have a shortage of capable police officers. Nigeria does not have a shortage of intelligence. Nigeria has a shortage of strategy. And like many African countries, we have spent years fighting the symptoms instead of dismantling the system that produces them. The goal should never be to arrest the last bandit. The goal is to make the choice of becoming a bandit the worst economic decision a Nigerian or any other person can make. So to the government of Nigeria, if we truly want to overcome banditry, then destroy the incentives, control the territory, cut off the money, dominate intelligence, restore justice, return government to every village. That is how states win. You see, the day that Nigeria state becomes more present than the bandits, the day the Nigeria state becomes more present than the bandits, where there is army almost everywhere, the day that more people will fear the government than these criminals, that will be the day that Nigeria begin to win. And when the day comes, the world will no longer ask, can Nigeria defeat banditry? Instead, they will ask, how did Nigeria defeat banditry? And perhaps that answer will become the blueprint for every African nation battling organized crime. Thank you so much. If you found this point of view worth, kindly subscribe and share. And see you again in another meaningful conversation.